What up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back here at the Friday Night Movie Club, and I'm joined with two guys who have been gone for so long they probably didn't even notice that we updated the outro for that whole thing. So, how you guys doing today? We'll start with Rick. How you doing today, Mr. Texan Cafe?
I'm doing well. I'm surviving.
That's great, Rob. How you doing tonight? Huh?
I'm good.
Doing pretty well there. Yeah, so it's been a few weeks since I've seen at least a couple of you guys. I'll put it that way. It's been such a long time. I can't even remember the last time either one of you were on the show. Rob, do you remember the last movie that we reviewed?
I think it was the Meg 2.
That sounds about right. What about you, Rick?
Yeah, I guess. I think I did the Meg 2. What is? Yeah, that's the last. I don't really remember.
You sure? Because now I can just look it up right now and figure out when was the last time you were on there. And then it'd be hilarious if neither one of you were on that show. I think that would be just the back on the kid. But we're here for another episode of a movie review, and it's a very interesting movie that we're talking about tonight because based on essentially where we gauged the viewing, I guess our feelings of this film before we came live on here, I think there's going to be a lot of directions to talk about this specific film. We're talking about the creator tonight, and I do want to branch out into a bigger conversation here about just how badly this whole Disney and 20th Century Fox deal played out, and if this is the type of stuff that they paid $72 billion for, I mean, we have to ask some serious questions about where any of this was worth it to begin with. But we do have some people joining us here, and also going to have some people stopping by throughout the course of the night. Our good buddy Duke Nukem's here singing French Nonsense here on the chat, and then he has the audacity to say that our super awesome new intro is actually goofy. I mean, I've been put it to you this way: over the last 48 hours, I've been backlogging all of our old episodes onto an external drive, so at least have a copy of at least every episode we've done so far. And when we started off, we were just doing this 30-second countdown, which is that very generic StreamYard intro, and then we had that really goofy looking movie intro that just wasn't very appealing at all, and the song was very bad. So I actually like the effort that I put into this one very, very much. And to Duke Nukem, all I have to say to you
fucking income fucking poop.
Yeah, so shut up over there. But we're glad that you're joining us here for the show tonight. So I want to start off this one talking about, I guess, in our sphere, the movie sphere here. Let's talk about the fact that the writer strike is over. Hollywood writers are back. The movies are back in business. They can start writing things. So we can now have 13 late night shows every single night telling you how awful Trump is now because the writer's strike is back. I know some of you guys are absolutely devastated by this news that the writers are back, and I guess I think they said like next week the actors strike might be over as well. Even though there's talk about a video game strike, and it's like no one cares about the video games at this point. It's like I don't even know why you guys even trying to get in this whole thing. Like you missed your chance. If you didn't strike by now, then no one's gonna give a crap about you at this point in time. But yeah, as you see here, John from Bounding in the Comments put this up earlier, explaining a Hollywood screenwriter explains how the new woke diversity hires over the last few years might be out of a job under the new writers deal. I've been thinking about this too. How closely have you guys been keeping up with the actual demands that were met by the writers here? Because I'm thinking to myself, you guys spent what, about 5 months on strike, and I don't think you got really anything that you wanted here at the end of the day. Did you guys hear anything different regarding this? I'll start with Rick.
I wasn't even paying attention to the strike with all the things that you can find on Roku and Tubi. It's like I don't watch anything recent, so it was of no interest. I mean, the only thing I heard about was their insistence that you have a certain set number of writers for a television episode, I think, or maybe the whole series. And I'm thinking that's way too many cooks in the kitchen. It's going to be very chaotic to try to have a single vision when you've got insistence that so many writers have to be in that room to write like one episode or a whole series. So other than that, I have not been following the strike at all.
Rob,
Yeah, the only thing I really heard was like had to do with residuals. So like if somebody is on a streaming platform, they get a certain amount of money per the number of hours or the number of minutes they are watched. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of the only thing in terms of negotiating what a lot of people wanted. I think that's more about actors, not writers. But again, I don't know what demands you can really make, because it's like you either have a successful product that people want to see or you don't, and you negotiate once you start working or before you start working what you're going to be paid. So if you're good at what you do, generally you don't need you don't need to go on strike to sort of demand things from your potential employer.
yeah, it feels like the whole emphasis of this entire strike was, oh well, we need more money. You guys aren't paying us a fair amount and stuff like that. And I'm not getting any indication that need was really met. It feels like to me that the studios pretty much played this whole thing exactly the way they wanted to, and the whole idea was to starve these guys out so they can come back to the table and accept whatever deal was like on the table there for them. And because we were rapidly, coming up on the end of the year, a government shutdown, a new election, all that stuff, I think they probably felt that they were more inclined to agree to a deal now before things got bad for them. Because I mean, look, you got guys already complaining about that, they're not making any money, how they're losing their homes and stuff like that, and it's getting harder and harder for them. Now there's talks about another government shutdown, which may or may not happen. I honestly don't think it's going to happen. Usually when these things come across, they fold at the very last moment, like all the other times that they do. But let's just read a couple things here from Script Doctor, who basically inserted that the diversity hires could be out of a job with this new deal with the Writers Guild of America, which is very funny to me, seeing how they're the ones who propped up this whole thing in the first place. But he was asked by the show host, he says, will there be less jobs now when you have a guaranteed writer's room? And Script Doctor basically said that, well, this is one of the things I didn't like in regards to a guaranteed writer room, because you have compelled hirings, but it looks certain members of the union on the negotiating committee have turned it upside down, turned it inside out a bit to the benefit of the writers, and that who know how to finish a script, but may not push too much ideology there. Don't get me wrong, there's definitely going to be veteran writers out there that are drinking the Kool-Aid, but the vast majority of them, the ones that do preach this, are younger. I've been learning through the colleagues that a lot of them have actually spent more time striking and spending time on social media than actually expanding their portfolio of scripts to pitch when the strike is over, which is obviously not a very smart plan when you're on strike, and then the strike's over and then it's like, okay, I got to start back at square one. It's like, what were you doing for the last 5 months outside of taking selfies outside of the Paramount building just so you guys can get a good photo op there? But Continues by saying that, so basically what we're seeing from here are the youngins. There are going to be less possibly less opportunities for them, especially being in the pre-greenlit mini rooms, where it comes down to two factors. The first one is that the NBA clearly defines that a showrunner has to be a union writer, so it can't be an eternal executive producer like Kevin Feige. It also gives them a bit more power on who they select in the writing positions. At minimum, it said the minimum staffing mini rooms. It also says whoever they select must be approved by the company, or the showrunner has to argue for them to be involved. So it sounds like it's getting a little more strict there with their qualifications. And now in those rooms, you have showrunners that would, a real showrunner, a good showrunner, is only going to hire writers that they know they're going to get value out of the room, which means that you're a diversity hire, and that's all you got going for you. You have no value to a showrunner. That means you're not going to get a guaranteed hire over there. I think that's a good thing here elaborated. So basically focus on the new guidelines for the writers rooms, which could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. The only problem that I have with this whole scenario is that at this point in time, how do you differentiate between the good writers and the bad writers in Hollywood anymore? Because I mean, the way that we see it, there's only like a handful of like really good writers like in Hollywood, and they only provide movies like every once in a while now. And you got a bunch of guys who I mean, I've seen a number of TV shows recently, like on was it Netflix and Hulu, trying to like catch up on some few things, and the writing is just abysmal now. Like I've said this story many times before that I think the last TV show I watched from start to finish that I legitimately enjoyed is Burn Notice, and that's a movie that I think ended its run back in 2012. It's been well over a decade since that show's been off the air, and ever since then you have shows that start off good for a handful of episodes and it just goes dumb. And then ever since the age of Trump, everything has been ideological now, so it's been far worse than that. I mean, I'm not sure if this helps or hurts Hollywood from the standpoint of now there's going to be, I guess, more of a a streamline with the showrunners deciding who gets on, who doesn't get on. But I mean, if the showrunners are not any good, then I mean, what is that really going to change much here? Rob, what are you kind of reading into this from what we went through here?
Yeah, I mean, to me it sounds good. Because like, look, I have very little respect for TV as it is, to be fair. Because I mean, mostly because I just favor movies as an art form, as a superior art form, which they may not be anymore, but just historically. I think this is good because the actual good television shows that have been made over the last 20-25 years have a strong showrunner at the forefront. They have a strong vision for what the show is, for the direction it's going to go in, and everybody else sort of like gets in line. Like, they may write episodes, but it's under the guidance of the showrunner, of the executive producer. And obviously it depends on how much leeway they give their writers, but like the best shows of all time arguably have been made in this way, whether it's Mad Men or The Sopranos or Deadwood or Breaking Bad or any of these things. I mean, I may not like Breaking Bad, but I know a lot of people do. I know it's still watched a lot, even though that went off the air almost a decade ago. So I am in favor of it, but you're right in that there's a lot of shitty showrunners too. Shonda Rhimes and Ryan Murphy and a lot of people who make garbage out there. So it's like, it all depends who is at the forefront of that production. Ultimately, I'm in favor of it because it allows people to succeed and fail based on their creative vision. And it should be up to them anyway, who gets hired on as a writer. They've been hired to sort of helm that show, and they should be in charge of it. So whether it succeeds or fails is ultimately based on their guidance and their decision making.
I will say this too before I shoot this over to Rick. It seems like the one big win of this whole scenario for the writers, at least from this perspective goes, is the fact that they at least managed to stave off AI just for a short period of time. I'm not sure how much longer it's going to go on before AI eventually comes to the writer room to put everyone out of work. But at least like they delayed the inevitable to at least prepare themselves for a couple more years.
I really don't have much to add. Although this whole thing with the showrunners, maybe Rob knows a little more than I do. The Twilight Zone, the original, that was primarily Rod Serling who wrote the majority of episodes. If they go by what they have now, he wouldn't have that much power to write all those episodes. I go back to one of my personal favorite shows, Are You Being Served? I think almost all the scripts were written by two people. They're the showrunners, Jeremy Croft and I can't remember David Knowles. I think. I'm sorry if I don't remember the names. Those were also the vision of one person. But now that you're going to have so many, it is going to be you're either going to have a very strong showrunner who's going to have to kind of corral all of his writers into one or all her writers into like one idea, one vision, one master plan, or you're just going to have what is it, a scattershot method where everyone's going to put in their own ideas. All of these other writers who have nothing to fall back on except maybe, oh, I'm a minority, or I'm this or that, I'm going to put these ideas. um, with the budgets going up because of all the new hires that they're going to have to do, I don't know how they'll survive. I mean, maybe, I don't know, but really I have very little interest. I mean, I wish them well, but I have very little interest because I have not I all the shows that are nominated for like Emmys, I probably have not seen any of them. I've
But
never even heard of some of them.
put it to you this way, it's like the last big writer strike, there was almost a sense of relief when it ended, and I think it was like what 15 years ago, somewhere like around that time, where TV was actually still good and people were actually like pretty excited for it, the shows to come back and get back on the right track. And then all of a sudden it's like, the last 10 years, especially with television, I mean, movies, like I said, movies are usually a hit and miss. I think they've been slightly more miss over the last few years than others, but yeah, the television has just been outright just dreadful. Like Rob said earlier, I mean, you go from that 2000s era where you had like so many great television shows on in that time period. I mean, you go from like the start of the decade when you had like The Wire and The Sopranos and so many shows like that, even towards the end of the decade when you had like Sons of Anarchy, Burn Notice, Breaking Bad, and stuff like that. And you just kind of think to yourself, like, man, what really happened? Like there was a switch that got flipped there, and we weren't really paying attention at the time to what exactly happened. But it seems like it's gotten significantly worse as the time has gone on there. But the writing strike is over. Like I said, I think they're gonna still go back to like working on like the TV shows, and maybe a few movies gets worked on. And then, like I said, they already announced that the late night shows are coming back, and I was just like, oh, okay, well, great. Well, it was
Who's
fun while that
watching
lasted.
those? Who really was watching those? I mean, back in the time when you had Carson, who was able to dominate late night, to
Mhm.
where only I think Arsenio Hall was the only other person who could even threaten him during his tenure. Um, that was what do you call it? Water cooler talk, where you
Yeah.
would try to catch up. Who now is watching Colbert? Who now is watching Fallon? Who I have still weird sympathy for.
Hey,
Who's watching
MSK,
all
do
of
you
these?
watch Fallon?
I'm being honest here. I only watched that shit when they had like hot women on, generally promoting the movies. I think I watched one when Revenge of the Fallen came out. They had Megan Fox on. That's
Yeah.
the only time I remember watching those. Those weren't. I don't know. I didn't like those when they were the most popular thing. Apparently, you know.
No, not at all.
I
By the
watched
way, how you
Jimmy-
doing there? Okay.
You know, Holly. You know, it's crazy how we went through a writer strike and people think they actually won something when it's entirely not true at all. It's like they literally announced they're doing fewer shows. So because I know these people are,
Which is
stupid.
probably for the better. I mean, to be honest with you.
It's true. Yeah, it's one of those things where these people are just brain dead. So they announced they're doing fewer shows. So that means you have access to less money. So if it's already nepotistic inherently, where they only pick a certain amount of people to do certain things, it's going to be even worse now, right? So there's less shows and there's only a certain amount of money that everyone can make. Gotta love studios, and people understand if you're the one making the contract, you're the one that gets the absolute most control over how things work. You know?
Yeah, and it's just also not just fewer shows, fewer episodes. I think what was it? Echo had reduced from 6 to 5 episodes.
That's probably a
so
good
that's
thing.
Yeah, so that's one. Well, not for Jacob. He really wants to see it. But
It's the greatest show ever. I literally released a video this week. It's the greatest, stupidest show of all time, and I can't wait.
But that's one less writer that's going to be working on an episode.
Good. I mean, there's no downside to this.
Disney Plus has a lot of other problems. You know what I mean? Like their entire slate. I mean, granted, maybe ratings wise they've done fine, like WandaVision, but they've been a complete disappointment. Whether it's She-Hulk or the the Obi-Wan show, or like
Yeah.
whatever happened to the Mandalorian. Like all these properties that were supposed to do really well have all seemed to be like incredible disappointments. Now, I haven't watched any of them, so and they're not for me, to be fair. But even for fans, it seems like the general consensus is disappointment.
Oh,
like
yeah.
For me, when it comes to, I think people have to understand. I can't go on a long tangent right now, because I did on the last show. I had one-on-one with someone else, but long story. The TLDR is what kids say nowadays. TLDR. So like the whole streaming model is kind of like this glass house thing, where it was supposed to be like this next big thing, and these writers are somehow thinking there's a whole load of gold there when there really isn't, right? So that would require streaming being really profitable. Well, streaming inherently was supposed to be what? You don't have ads like cable, right? Well, people don't understand. People bring in advertisers when you need extra money. You need some help there. If the goal is to be like not like cable and it's profitable, because people claim it is. If it's profitable, why do you need advertisers then? You, by definition, wouldn't need advertisers. And if it's profitable, isn't. A lot of these aren't profitable. And the writers think there's some like well of money there, when in reality, I don't think the studios are lying. So that's what I said. There is no money there. I think it's just propped up on a house of cards. These people think there's some gold mine there. There isn't. It's actually just, it's a smoke. It's like the Wizard of Oz guy. Don't pay attention to the guy behind the mirror. It's literally, that's what it is. It's just smoke and mirrors.
A big part of that is back when the whole pandemic happened, every single major studio made the decision that, you know what, we're going to cash in on this thing and we're going to direct everyone to our streaming services, because once we make a whole bunch of money with our streaming services, we'll prove we don't need the theaters anymore. We can start doing our own in-house content. And they found out very, very quickly that plan was not going to work. And to be honest with you, they still really haven't recovered from this at all, because like Disney, Warner Brothers, a couple of these other studios, they put so much money into the cost of creating their streaming services that they're still not even profitable yet. And it's been about 3 or 4 years now, and they're still trying to find a way to get up to the surface of where they're at right now. And they've pretty much dug their own hole with this whole thing.
I think the money was never there to begin with. I think it's all been propped on a house of cards. It's basically kind of like that guy in a business meeting that you go to every Friday. It's like, I have the next plan for the future. Girls will be inside my butthole by 2024. 2 years happening. I'm out of business. I'm broke, and I'm living out of a box. It's always how that conversation goes.
Yep. Next thing you know, you're putting everything in your car and you're driving up to the park to sleep.
That's what I think is. Given how inflation has happened, given how the market is propped up, all the prices through the roof has been going on. People don't understand distribution costs are a bitch for a lot of these people, right? That's why movies have to make a certain amount of money. You distribute in distribution, because internationally, people think America's hot on cash. No, China wants their money. You putting your movie in their theater. So does Russia. Other places. Imagine that for a streaming service. Netflix has to run in India, Australia, wherever else, right? That costs a lot of money. Yep. It just does. How does Netflix really make money? Through just a bunch of subscribers. But there's a certain amount of cap you'll get to a subscriber. It's kind of like back in the day, you can only really, for subscription services, you can only get a certain amount of people. There's not infinite subscribers. There just isn't, right? Then they're putting like $200 million movies on their streaming services. How do you make that money back? You're like, all your subscribers? You can't, right? Because I think you just
get more debt to make more content, and then just hope that the whole thing doesn't collapse like a house of cards.
They said, I think by 2020, I read an article, 2021, where the trades reported that they can only Netflix had made like $2 billion or whatever. But people are like, look, that's a lot of money. And yeah, it is. $2 billion? That's a lot of money. Now factor in where all that money goes to. Workers, server maintenance, distribution costs on all your Netflixes that exist, the money that goes to your writers, the directors, the producers, all the background talent, all that stuff. That $2 billion that they said they had a net profit, that's not really profit though. That's kind of like profit of like, okay, that's what you get after taxes, right? Cool. But where does all that money really go to after that? They still have to reinvest back in the company, do they not?
Yeah, it's not like they'll take that money and then go on like an island party with a bunch of cocaine hookers. Like you can't do that.
You know, Apple did it the right way, right? Like, I am still amazed by the way how Apple did this.
Really clever,
they were almost out of business. And then they turn it around with like what, the iPod, the iPhone, like now they literally cash on hand have more money than anybody. They have their own
They have more
film
money than
studio now.
Jesus himself.
So
they're like they're at least $1 trillion company at this point.
whereas
That's not even a joke.
Netflix, he's right. If you look at Netflix's business model, it's like they're going to collapse at some point.
Literally, last year, the first part of last year, they lost how much billions of dollars? People said, but they make $2 billion. You just money they lost. Well, I don't care what profit you can't bleed out cash like that.
Well, one of the things that I would add is there's just so much content that they can put on streaming. It's a glut. No one's going to be able to watch all the shows that they have, all the movies that they have. It's going to exhaust. They thought that they had an infinite amount of audience and an infinite amount of content. Yeah, they can make more and more content, but there'll be fewer and fewer people watching, probably because they don't have the time. So
I mean, Netflix's debt, I think the last time it was counted, is about $15 billion. And that's what they keep in mind. They're the biggest stream giant in town. Like they have like 150 million like people worldwide. So they are at the top of the mountain, and they're still $15 billion in debt.
Factor that in. The biggest streaming service on this planet is $15 billion in debt. The biggest one. I can only imagine the financial numbers of the other one. Remember, they got in trouble for fudging the numbers on Max, Disney Plus. Paramount Plus is literally merging with Showtime, right? I imagine they're making so much money. Why would you merge and share profits though? All because they realize this isn't the way of the future. This is just going to be just another added thing for the consumers. That's it.
Well,
that's all it really
Showtime is owned by Viacom, who owns CBS too. So I think it's just easier not to have separate distribution costs and to all be on.
True.
But
I think another big problem when it comes to, I think this is the plus. David Zaslav last year said people got mad at him for it, and I thought he was speaking truth there. And I'll agree with a lot of corporate execs, but I think this was a really good thing he said, where there's no reason for your streaming service to be. He was taking a shot at Netflix. You can tell he was by what I'm going to bring up, which is he mentioned there's no reason to have your streaming service cluttered up with a bunch of stuff, like you mentioned before. No one's going to watch. Having all that stuff just cluttered there just because it's content is going to be a bunch of things. People can't pick what they want to watch, or it just turns them off because there's too many options. You don't need your streaming service cluttered with like 7 different TV shows. You're going to cancel half of them anyway. I agreed with him. I think the problem with all streaming is people have too much stuff on there. New stuff is fine. I don't disagree with new stuff. Too much new stuff, that's when it comes to be a problem at that point. You just wasted space too. And it's probably most of it's not even good.
Not at all. And like I said, their day of reckoning is coming. Like that's just pretty much like the way that it goes right now. And what the country's getting much worse. Inflation is still crushing people. Like right now, I mean, we haven't even hit like the unemployment bubbles popped yet. The housing bubbles and popped yet. Like we're just basically creating a gas explosion that's just boiling up. And it's like the little like spokes are starting to like shoot out, and no one's really like getting out of the way. But it's gonna blow pretty big here in the coming.
I don't know how. We're still in the midst of the Biden boom there, sir. Greatest economic recovery of all time.
Yeah, how's that boom working out for you lately?
I can't really afford much.
Exactly, right?
Didn't they say like
but I'm just probably probably just a bad man. I'm just probably a bad man.
Didn't they say at the GOP primary debate that people on average now have to put stuff back out of their cart because things have gotten too expensive? Imagine just for that. The average person has to go through that. Imagine what these TV show companies have to go through.
Yeah.
And people claim these guys are profitable. Oh my God, people are so stupid.
It's the dumbest thing in the whole world. But I wanted to go here and talk to this because, Rob, you weren't here on the bar room this week, so there was a couple of things that I wanted to mention with you. And we kind of got into a rabbit hole about this, and the conversation went 2 different ways. But I want to start off with the whole conversation about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce on football. Let's switch to sports here for a second. As you know, Taylor Swift has now taken over the NFL. She was at the last Chiefs game. She's supposed to be at this one with the Jets this week. And as if Jets fans haven't already been doing enough now they have to deal with Taylor Swift too. But this whole manufactured thing with Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, and this whole thing just seems like a pro wrestling work. None of it seems real. A couple of weeks before they made their relationship official, he was doing commercials for like Bud Light and Pfizer, which just makes me think that even more fixed. I mentioned this with you last year, how after that Buccaneers Cowboys game, I felt like the NFL is just fake now. Like it's just straight up pro wrestling after that blatant point shaving that we saw last last year, and this kind of confirms to me that okay, the NFL is basically just one big like it's essentially like WCW 1997 now. This is what it become. Do you agree at this point?
No, I don't think so. I mean, if point shaving exists, okay. I mean, I mean, the refs have to be in on it for that to be true, I suppose. I don't know. I don't know. I love the NFL. I love it as a product. I love how excited I still get every Sunday to sit down and watch it. It's just one of those things I love enthusiastically. I fucking hate Taylor Swift. I have since I was a young man and found her to be completely phony. Just everything she presented herself to be, from her singer-songwriter, quaint, I'm pretending to be an indie artist bullshit. I mean, I saw right through it. And now that she's this mega pop star that everybody can't stop talking about and wants to associate with their product, I don't understand what the angle is with the NFL or Travis Kelce. Is it because the Bears and the Jets were supposed to be better and you need help with ratings because not enough people are watching? I have no fucking idea because I don't know what the angle possibly would be other than just, hey, this is like celebrity hysteria and like, let's cash in on it. So I don't know. Again, I think Taylor Swift fans are annoying and I wish people would stop talking about her. That's pretty much the long and short of it.
Well, that's not going to happen anytime soon because now they're trying to get her to stop the Kansas City Chiefs from doing the tomahawk chop now. So they think that we can use her celebrity to advance our agenda now. So because she's a dumb liberal airhead, they be like, hey, we can use her to get them to stop the tomahawk chop. Maybe we can get them to change the name too. It's like, yeah, okay, good luck with that one, buddy.
Now, I'm curious, are the Taylor Swift fans the same ones that rally to Barbie? Because they all have this very almost zombie-like reaction.
It's probably a good crossover between those two fan bases. If we're being honest.
By good, the entirety of the fan base.
Yeah, exactly.
and just as a football historian, like a guy who knows football history, the Kansas City Chiefs literally represent the AFL. Going all the way back to the merger, the Lamar Hunt Trophy is named for the AFC champion. Like the idea that you would change anything about that franchise, it's like those fans would literally tear you limb from limb. Like they're never changing what they are. Like I'm surprised the Washington Redskin fans weren't more like vociferous about the name change. And
I think,
or the Cleveland Indians, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that one really pisses me off because like that's another beloved franchise, and it's just like, what is wrong with you people? Just stop it. Just keep the history, please.
And my understanding is that the Cleveland Indians were named to honor a Native player on their team. It wasn't like, oh, we're just going to make fun of Native Americans. And the same with the Redskins. So it's, from my understanding, it's a not understanding of history. But again, I don't follow football at all, so I have no context into including this. Actually, for the Cleveland Indians, now Guardians, there were fans who did not want the name changed. But again, it's the pressure. It's the pressure from people who, and I've discussed this in the past, from people who do not watch sports and who do not care about sports and who were not going to support the team when they made the name change to Guardians. They weren't going to go and get season seats. They weren't even going to go to games. They were just going to get the name changed. They were going to feel good because they thought they had done something positive for natives and move on to the next target. And I'm still surprised that the Braves, the Rangers, and the Padres have not changed their names. Or I guess the pressure is down for them. But I think there was a push to change the name of the Rangers. And I think they got rid of the Ranger statue at the airport because, of course, that's oppressive to Mexicans like me. So that pressure is kind of dying. But again, what good did the name change do? It was not, I don't think it was made to ridicule the Native Americans. Though, in fairness, I was happy to see Chief Wahoo kind of go because I thought that was more questionable.
Yep. And I just keep everything. Like I'm just at the point where it's like, stop trying to be offended by things that have been around for decades. Like you've been actually cared about any of this stuff. Like people just went to a college for a couple of years and it's like, oh wow, this is really racist. I want to change it now. It's like it's been like this forever. No one's cared up until like the last couple of years, and now they're trying to use this as a wave to be like, oh, we need to get rid of all the Native American names because my heritage isn't your team. It's like, shut up. Everyone just shut up. And then, like I said, the whole thing with Taylor Swift, like I think it's just a work. This is just a pro wrestling angle at this point, playing out in front of our eyes. And here's where I think this is going to go, because Kansas City is still one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl this year, and I think that they're in their mind, what they're visualizing is that the Chiefs win another Super Bowl, and then you're going to sit there, you're going to get Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift holding the Lombardi Trophy at the very last game of the year in the Super Bowl for 1,000 minutes. That's going to be like their money shot. That's what's going to be that's going to be the payoff for this whole storyline that we're watching right now.
Yeah, be very careful if that's the actual plan. Be very careful. Remember, that mindset was the reason that we had Best Actor be the last award presented a few years back, because they were absolutely convinced Chadwick Boseman was going to win, and we were going to have a very touching and beautiful moment. His widow was going to come up there, and we were all going to salute and give him like a Lifetime Achievement Award. What ended up happening? Anthony Hopkins wins, and even Joaquin Phoenix is like, Anthony Hopkins, we accept on his behalf. Good night. And that was it. It blew up in their face because they were expecting something without realizing that maybe Chadwick Boseman was not going to win. I mean, they didn't count on the support for Anthony Hopkins. If that's what the plan is, it's going to be, it's going to be disastrous.
Just real quick, I love the fact that a guy wins Best Actor, he doesn't even show up for the award. Like, I have a level of respect for that now, especially seeing what the absolute clown show the Oscars has become the last few years.
Yeah, well, in fairness, he did. He offered to do a Zoom. They declined, and he's like, what, 84? He was not going to fly from Wales into a COVID area at 84 years old, because even he thought he was going to lose.
It's like, you can just FedEx it to me. It's like, that's great. Yeah, I appreciate it at this point. Well, one last thing before we get on with our movie talk here, and I'm glad that I have you three on here, because I think you've all been accused of misogyny at one point in time in your life, especially Rick here. So let's go ahead and talk about why nobody watches women's sports, because this is another argument that we got into earlier this week. And so here's what happened here. We were actually talking about the differences between basketball and volleyball. And I said to myself, well, if you look at, let's say college volleyball for an instance, this is going somewhere here, just hold on for a second, but let's look at volleyball for a second. You got a bunch of tall, good-looking girls playing volleyball in a sport that virtually nobody watches outside of like a handful of guys, and then like it's part of like the NCAA and all this nonsense. But then you have the push, especially over the last few years, and Rob, I'm pretty sure you've noticed this too, about trying to make women's basketball a thing when nobody wants women's basketball, nobody watches women's basketball, and they go out of their way on TNT and ESPN, especially now the last couple of years. They're trying to make it seem like the WNBA is on equal footing with the NBA when it's clearly not, right? Like, you have like Steph Curry and Sue Bird doing commercials together, and they're like doing like, oh, I got 4 championships. Well, I got 4 championships too. It's like, well, you're 4 championships in the WNBA. It doesn't even count. It's like, let's stop with this whole thing. But this is like my whole complaint here. It's that I think I even posted this on a tweet earlier today. It's like, imagine how much more popular women's basketball would be if, one, the women were actually attractive, which they're not. 2, they could actually play the game of basketball, which they can't. And then I think the third one was along the lines of, imagine if God, I've been blanking on that last one now. They actually got in trouble for that a little bit earlier today. But it was like 3 things. Like, these are blatantly why nobody wants to watch it. Oh yeah, I said something about them being lesbians too, which I think like 40% of them are as well. But and then it's like, you have no idea like what your audience is. Your audience, you think your audience is like, these 30, 40-year-old like feminist women. Here, let me let you on a little secret. One, men don't want to watch a bunch of ugly lesbians play basketball. It's just the way that it is, because if that was the case, they just watch dudes play in the NBA. And then the other part of this is that women don't want to watch ugly women playing basketball, because guess what? They like dudes. And if they want to watch dudes play basketball, they play the NBA. So it's like, like I said, we got into this whole like debate and argument about why these whole things don't work. I'm gonna go ahead and ask you, Rob, just from your perspective here. Like I said, I'm sure you've noticed this with like ESPN putting either a bunch of like female commentators on for like a lot of the men's game in order to like prop up the women's game, and basically just the way that they promote this and stuff. It's like, when are they gonna learn that this whole thing is just never gonna work from a marketing perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I know ESPN like got rid of some really talented people who are on like I
A
think
lot.
the NBA play-by-play or color commentators to basically promote Doris Burke. And look, Doris Burke's great at what she does. But I will say this: I dealt with this a little bit with the Ravens Colts game last Sunday. CBS was trying a woman play-by-play commentator, and look, I have no real problem, equal opportunity and all that. Just women suck at play-by-play. I don't know what it is. Maybe they just suck as commentators. Maybe I just prefer a man. I don't know what it is. But look, the thing with women's sports in particular is that okay, men do it better. They're better at it. They're more interesting to watch on a competitive level. Okay, so then the majority of people who watch sports are men. Okay, so if you're not going to at least show a competitive, sporting event, at least give me something pretty to look at.
Yeah.
So I'm screwed. This is a product nobody wants. Women don't want the WNBA. Men don't want the WNBA. In fact, I think that there's more argument that women's college basketball, because of last year's Final Four and its competitive nature, is probably the best that women's basketball has to offer at this point. But I don't know. I don't know why they're trying to sell it other than say, hey, we're equal. We're just as good, or this product is just as interesting, when it's not. The NBA has its own set of problems, but it is it is maximally more interesting to watch than the WNBA, which it goes back to that Family Guy fucking joke. It's like, it's a halftime score of 13-9. And it's like there's a single fan in the audience cheering it on, and look, that's an exaggeration, but really, for the majority, this is a market that nobody is interested in. Nobody wants. Please just let it die. I mean, I know
I was thinking more of the meme with like Always Sunny, where like I think it was like Mac tries to like push food in front of Dennis, and Dennis just tosses it into the hallway. Like that's pretty much what it is at this point. That's what they're doing. MSK, let me ask you this. Do you think that this is a group of women here in this picture here? And what's your general thoughts about women's sports, especially basketball here?
I'm just being honest here. Ain't nobody watch this trash. Okay, so this is how people just virtue signal and they're just stupid. You know how people will go on the streets in like big cities and ask you if you like WNBA? Mm-hmm. The fact that women, not just men, the fact that women can't even name a player on any team just goes to show you how much they don't care, and how much people will just say they like something even though they clearly have no interest in it because they don't want to be on an opposite side or get called, oh my God, an insult on the X app. Oh my God, so crazy, right? So other women would rather watch other men play basketball, even if they don't even know who's on teams. But they know LeBron James. Who's LeBron James of the WNBA? Do they have a Michael Jordan? Do they have a Kobe Bryant? Do they have a Shaq? Do they have a Tim Duncan? Probably not. Ever.
I mean,
ever.
I think the only in a WNBA player they could name is the one that was locked up in Russia.
Yeah.
Brittany Griner.
Oh, and on top of that, when Brittany Griner finally came back at the start of the season in LA, of all places, they only sold like half the tickets for her first game back.
Oh, right.
Half.
That's right.
And those tickets are like $10, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've said this before. First, who's the target audience? That's what any creator in film, television, and in sports, in this case, has to ask: who's the target audience? For most men, they like going to see men play sports: football, baseball, basketball, hockey, what have you. For women, are women that invested in watching sports with other women? No. With men, I know a few men who are so passionate about sports, I know someone who will watch a woman's football, but not flag football, actual tackle football, because they are so passionate about football, so passionate about sports, they will watch anything that is football related. Fine, it's good for them, they enjoy it. But who's going to watch? They haven't had they haven't had a lot of success. They've had more than 10 years to build up interest, and this
league's been around for at least 25 years, and I don't think they literally have not been profitable in any year they've been in existence, because they're basically subsidized by the NBA in their popularity.
You put these WNBA players up against NBA players.
Put them
It
against
just
the Timberwolves.
and they're not. I mean, what was that? What was that story about the women's soccer team that got defeated by a group of high school boys?
Yeah, it was like a 15 and under team or something like that, crushing.
I mean, it has nothing to do with the fact that they're women. So far, I mean, I'll just put it this way.
It does, but yeah.
Well, the way I phrase it is, men and women are equal, but they're not the same, and we shouldn't pretend that they are the same. I want women to have as much of an opportunity to play sports as the men. I don't believe that a woman will be able to inquire get as much interest to watch the sport as a man would, because most men prefer watching men play sports than they prefer women watching sports for the most part. I mean, it's not it's not like
there's only two hooks for men to watch sports. One is good competition, and one is good looking women. That's it. If you don't offer either of those, then they're not going to watch.
Men. I like my sexy black men running down the court.
Well, I mean, there's some people to their own.
This is the thing, and this is how I hate how they emotionally manipulate women in these things too, because they'll be like, well, if a woman doesn't, because even women themselves don't watch, but they always emotionally goad women into trying to watch, even though they're just not interested.
Yeah,
I hate that so much. It's like no one likes this. It's not interesting. Also, I know on CNN one time that one dumb white lady brought up, it's marketing. This league has been around forever. If that woman is trying to argue it's never been marketed good, you are on crack. You are just
especially like we said, over the last 5 years now, they've been marketing it heavily, especially with the NBA. They've been using the NBA's popularity to prop up the WNBA. They even put the WNBA in the NBA games now to give them equal footing. People still don't want it. And the problem is like, you want people to watch lesbian basketball. They don't want that. It's like, stop giving people what they don't want. Like,
it goes to, I'm going to bring it to television. This is something that I said when they finally had a female Doctor Who, because what did they say? What we were told? More, more people will watch, more women will watch, because they'll finally have a heroine to look up to. Yeah, the first about 3 episodes got higher ratings, but then they started going down, and it wasn't because was the female lead. Now it was because the writing was bad, and curiously enough, they had a whole variety of diverse writers. You had an Indian writer, you had a black female writer, so the show went down, and it started losing popularity, and now hardly anyone watches it. It has nothing to do with specifically being a woman. Real quick on the female commentator, I think there are many women who will probably know more about sports than I will. So there's nothing wrong with having a female commentator.
I mean, that's not saying much. I mean, let's be honest.
True. No arguments from this corner.
There's personality too. A lot of them are not just women, because it happens with a lot of sports sometimes, or even esports stuff. People are just kind of boring. They don't want to take any risks or be the controversial guy in the cast. It's just more easier to sit there and go, I'm an uppity guy. Yeah. I'm a funny guy. I laugh at stupid jokes. Like
most sports commentary is terrible. There's a website called Awful Announcing. That on a weekly basis sort of like roasts announcers. So trust me, it's a hard job, and there's a lot of people who have the job who are not good at it. So I'll state that just as a fact. But yeah, they just the whole okay, you guys know what I'm talking about, the radio voice, like the announcer voice where you put on an effect. It's that is very much true of female play-by-play commentators. At least that's what I picked up on that. So maybe it's a phoniness thing that I just don't like, regardless if it's male or female. But
it's there's nothing that says that a woman can't do commentary, and I see nothing wrong with it. I can learn from.
Well, here's the problem: people who have been commentators have only gotten the job for, like I said, one of 2 reasons. One, they have a very unique voice that plays very well for television and for radio, or 2, they're a former player of the sport that they're calling, which gives them more insight than everyone else watching this show. And that's the thing that bothers me, is like when I hear like women announcers for like basketball, I don't really like argue it too much, because I mean, there are plenty of women basketball players out there who would know a thing or two. So it's like, that's fine. When I say like women commentators for like hockey and football, I just think to myself, like, why? Like, why exactly like are we doing this? Because you have like no real insight into anything that's happening, so you're only there from the perspective of being an announcer stooge. And if you don't even have the intriguing voice going for you, like we're just putting you here for the sake of putting you here, and that's just dumb too. So
Yeah, and there's no guarantee that a former player would be a good commentator. I think most of you have seen bad examples of former players who just are boring, and nobody's going to be
did Tony Romo almost get fired last offseason because he's been so bad lately?
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
he had some weird. CBS was putting out some dirt on him. That was some weird shit.
You
Look,
can't fire him. You can't fire
one
him
of the
because
best
that would be racist.
play-by-play commentators in football of all time is Pat Summerall, and he was a kicker for the Giants in the 50s. You know what I mean? So it just depends, ultimately like what you bring to the table. But there's plenty of great people who never played who are great at an announcing. So it ultimately just depends.
Well, let's go ahead and get into our film here, and we're talking about The Creator tonight. And I think there's going to be a lot of angles that we come from this, son, because there's the angle from essentially what the film is trying to do, whether it's trying to be like a sci-fi in the realms of like, Blade Runner and things like that. There's obviously a lot of biblical themes that we can talk about it as well. I think there's also an angle here of, I think me and Spencer were talking about this off air not too long ago about Disney paid $72 billion to acquire 20th Century Fox, which means that the entire library, all the feature films that they were working on, everything within this name, $72 billion. And ever since that deal has been finalized, they've come out with nothing of quality. Like this whole production company has come out with nothing in quality at all. I think the only thing that was a financial hit for them was the last Avatar movie that came out at the end of last year, but that only profit you $700 million versus the amount of money you put into to create the whole thing. So that's been kind of a disaster. We've seen films like Amsterdam be just absolutely like awful. That was in 20th Century Fox. We've seen things like Not Okay be really, really bad. That's another 20th Century like Fox label. So they've really been going down a rough patch here. And I'm looking at this movie, and there's a lot of angles here that I can come from that probably you guys won't come from, and even just kind of look at it from the outside of, look, how many times we're going to keep trying to make John Washington like a star here? Because it feels like every time they put him up to be like the main event guy, like he just hasn't come through. It's like we go back to Tenet a few years ago. Even when they tried it with like Ballers, it was like, no, it's just not really there. It's like, I get it that he's the son of Denzel and you guys want to do something with him, but you got to put him in the right role, and having him carry a film just isn't what he needs here at this point. But you're talking about a film here called The Creator, and I want to get kind of your thoughts about what you thought about this film going into it, because when I saw the trailer to this one and the theme of this whole movie, my whole thing was that, okay, is this just going to be like outright transhumanism, like pointing out like right in our faces? Is this going to be like another predictive programming type of thing? Because we all know the whole thing is going on with AI right now. It's still advancing. People's jobs and careers are going deeply into like AI, and everyone think, oh, this is going to be great. This is going to make my job so much easier. No, it's going to take your job in like 5 to 10 years. Like that's what it's doing right now. And everyone's smiling like this is a good thing. And then, like I said, everything sounds like a good thing the first couple of years until you realize how bad it actually is. Like go back to the Patriot Act. Remember when that whole thing happened a while back ago? So there's a thing I'll talk about here for a second. I'll go ahead and start off with Rob here. What was kind of your thoughts on the movie here before you saw it, based on the trailer, based on what you had seen?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely got a strong impression that it was going to sort of deal with themes that we've seen many times before, dealing with AI, dealing with what it means to be human, and all those sort of philosophical questions, spiritual questions even. So I kind of got that impression from it. It's something we've definitely seen before. But visually, there was something about it that I was like, why does this look like a Star Wars movie?
So it's like Rogue One.
Yeah, what I mean by that is like the AI droids and stuff, or the machines look like almost like episode one droids or something, or some of the building designs, some of the ship designs look very similar to like Lucasfilm production kind of stuff. So I just remember getting that feeling watching the trailer and kind of just being somewhat interested, because it, there's no lightsabers, there's no, there's none of that stuff's going on, and it's more of a generalized science fiction narrative. So I was at least open to it being good and being something a little different. But you know, it's overall it's a Disney product pretending to not be. Talking just a little bit about the opening credits, you see the Regency label, which, you know, if you knew Regency, the production company. So it's just it's trying to sort of like, hey, this isn't a Disney product, even though it is. So it was kind of my thoughts.
MSK, what did you think about the film going into it? Were you interested in watching this film? Like, what was kind of your initial thoughts of this one?
So a little bit of context here. So Society said, "Hey, can you help me do some movie reviews?" And I was like, "Yeah, I kind of want to get back into the game." I took my break after watching The Flash because it made me want to stab my neck out with a Michael Myers butcher knife. So I took a break from watching the movies. Society's like, "You want to watch The Creator and we can review them on his channel?" I was like, "Yeah, but isn't this the same week Saw 10 comes out?" He's like, "Yeah, pick this." But the crowd, there'll be a crowd there with Saw. He's like, no, watch The Creator. And
is there been a crowd with Saw? Because I haven't seen any box office numbers backing that up.
I went. Okay, so how the day went. So I checked my phone. The Creator. I was like, "Who's in the cast here?" Gemma Chan. Everyone's hyped about Gemma Chan. That bitch cannot act to save her life.
Literally, we'll get to her in a minute.
She attempts to act in this movie. It's not very good, but at least she's giving something here. And it's also to a black guy, so maybe she wants to get BBC'd out, but that's not the point. So I looked at the cast and I was like, Gareth Edwards, okay, Rogue One, the 2014 Godzilla movie he did.
My God.
I think Godzilla was a movie. I thought his is probably the best one in that lineup. So I was like, okay, I know this guy. He's kind of a name for me. Okay, that's it. I just knew cast, and I just knew Gemma Chan and the main guy, Denzel's son. That's it.
I'm not gonna lie. I just made the joke about Rogue One. I didn't even put it together that he also directed Rogue One. It's like, that's why it looks exactly like Rogue One. It's the exact same director. I didn't put that together. But
got there to the movie theater, and these people came in, and this girl was like, "I didn't know they're making another Saw movie." People are not in the know as much as we think they are. These people are dumb. She said she literally saw a trailer for it on her phone, and that's why she knew Saw 10 was coming out. And Society got me watching this sci-fi flick, and everyone's over cheering and getting scared, and saw the other room. I could hear them cheering, having a good time. So I watched this, and I'm thinking, like, Society, what'd you do to me? Did you put me in a room with? I was literally in there with 3 other people there. To be fair, as everyone knows, I don't lie. I'll have to be honest. Overall, I thought I got a pretty decent movie. I think I think this is the first movie I watched in theaters in a while, and I'm a judge of. I break down a lot of things when scenes are going, and I like it. I'll say if I do, but I think this is a good movie for like a baseline for what people should need now. It's a nice balance right there. I think the problem with the movie overall, if people have just a problem with it, is the pacing. I think it gets a little too boring at a certain point. I think the overall plot, I think the idea is great. But I think the execution towards the very end of it starts getting kind of muddy, right? Yeah. Because I was with the movie the whole time. I was like, you got me in, you got me invested. But it's like toward the ending where you get to that second act where he's trying to look for her. That's when it starts kind of peeling back. Like, I think Gareth Edwards, I think he didn't really know how to end it. Because he started off with a good idea. Because like, I think AI is taking over now. They have it where AI is kind of like fighting back against the humans. Not the worst concepts ever. You know, it's kind of relatable, but it's not like in your face, like AI is gonna screw over everything, you know? Then it gets to a point where it's got a love triangle. I'm not the biggest person on lovey-dovey stuff in these kind of movies, so I feel like they hammer down the film. But I think throughout the movie, the way that John David Washington's acting gets, I think he's not terrible himself. I think he's fine. But I think his acting is hindered when you're constantly having this guy look for this woman. I think that's what really hindered him. I feel like he couldn't show more there because of that specifically. Those are just my general thoughts. I'm never going to get more into it, but those are my general thoughts. I didn't hate watching this. I actually enjoyed it. But I would say that toward the end of the second act, you guys are talking about where he finally finds her. That's where it starts getting kind of muddied a lital bit. You know?
Let the record show I only asked you about your initial thoughts before you watched the movie, not your entire review. But
and I just want to add that real quick. I think that the ending, they knew exactly how they wanted to end it. I think it's more piecing the first act to the third act. The second act drags the movie down. But yeah, I definitely think they knew how they wanted to end it, especially with how it ends. In terms of its messaging, but yeah, I'll just leave it there.
But yeah, sorry, my initial thoughts were it's Gemma Chan. Fuck, I can't escape this bitch's terrible acting, and it just why can't she act? She's so bland. There's Lay's plain chips that taste better than this woman's acting.
And she wasn't even a robot in the movie. That's what makes it even more hilarious.
She's not trying. She's only casted because she's hot, and I would bang her too. But she's only casted because she's hot.
I didn't even realize she was 40 already.
Who are we talking about?
Jim, we'll talk about her in a second. But Rick, I know you had the thoughts about what you thought of this movie going in.
Oh well, not much. I thought it was just going to be like a sci-fi movie that was going to draw pretty heavily on Blade Runner, and those were my real reactions. I honestly didn't know who Gemma Chan was, and I know who John David Washington is, but that's pretty much it. And it was going to be like, oh, it's a child, but it's not really a child. That's my conflict there. Should I kill this child who's not really a child? That would
yes.
That was
yes.
that was my impression about the trailer itself. Like it's just going to be like, am I going to be forced into a situation where it looks human, but it's not human, but I relate to it as a human? So will I have the courage, quote unquote, to kill it if it means saving all humanity? So that was pretty much it in terms of the trailer. But in terms of the movie, well, I guess we'll get into that more as we go on.
Yeah. So the whole setup of this film here, the way that this whole thing is pieced together, is this supposed to be set, I think, like 30 years, like in the future from now? Of course, AI has taken over, just like everyone knew that it would, and we started making cops, AI cops, and then they shot someone, so we had like a Black Lives Matter situation happen with the robot cops, and the next thing you know, LA just gets blown up. It gets completely blown to smithereens. 1 million people die. You can argue whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. We can talk about it in another show, but 1 million people die in LA, so now we have to go to war with the robots, and it's essentially humanity versus the robots. And this is another movie where, of course, humanity is the bad guys. The humans are the bad guys, the robots are the good guys. The robots are moral and stuff like that. And are you going to argue against that there, Rick?
No. I'm going to argue against a plot point that you have. You said that it's humanity versus the robots. Not necessarily. If you remember, New Asia was very supportive of the what.
If this isn't ass kissing China, I don't know what it is.
Yes. New Asia, which was very pro
AI.
Simulants.
Yeah.
You know what? I just kept calling them replicants because that's basically what it was.
Right.
So, but yeah, no, it was the U.S. and it was probably just the U.S. alone who on fighting, and they were apparently under a military dictatorship because I'm assuming that was like a presidential speech with a man wearing a military uniform, which, not even the generals that we've had, Grant or Eisenhower, appeared in uniform. They appeared in suits when they addressed Congress, but little details. Point being, no, it was the U.S. versus New Asia, and New Asia was very much in favor of the replicants. Let's just call them replicants. I'm not going to call them whatever they're called, simulants.
That's kind of where I get into, because we can start talking about the movie right now, can we?
Yeah. Well, let me go ahead and get to Rick's long-winded point here. So we start off this whole thing with, like I said, MSK. Yes, good old Gemma here.
Fuck, look at that bitch's face. You didn't want to be there, man.
Well, here's the thing. They have no chemistry whatsoever, but the entire film hinges on their romantic relationship, which is already, we're off to a bad start here to begin with. But we start off here. It's in the middle of the war. The humans are coming to take out the robots, and John is apparently undercover here as, I guess, trying to find out the location of this AI god. This AI god who I believe is, it starts with an N. I can't remember the exact name of it.
Norman?
Yeah. Nimrata or something like that. Nimrata, I think that's the name of the god. So Yeah, it's this creator of the AI who the AI view as their god, and like I said, there's going to be a lot of biblical themes here throughout the course of this entire film. But he's trying to find it. I guess their cover gets blown because they just decide that we're just going to show up on the island and just start shooting people because that's what we do here. So his cover gets blown. She finds out, so she freaks out. She tries to escape on a boat, and then of course the humans, I guess maybe the U.S. if you just want to throw it out there, just decides, oh, we're just going to drop a giant nuke on this island and kill everyone involved, and all of a sudden she dies, and then he is in like a stupor for like 5 years or whatnot. But then they're like, hey, you want to come back and work for us again? Turns out there's this video here of your wife, and maybe she's still alive even though she got nuked 5 years ago, so we want to go see what that's all about. So he literally goes out there to find this weapon that the AI are working, that they're hiding from everyone, but they said though this weapon has the ability to take out our giant ship that's in the sky. If we lose that ship, then we're going to lose the war against the AI. And it turns out that the giant weapon is literally just like a 7-year-old girl, a 7-year-old half robot girl who's not really a robot, but she has the powers to basically control any kind of technology with her mind by putting her hands together in prayer and making them disappear like I Dream of Genie. And then that's pretty much the jump off point of this entire film. So I guess, Kay, you can start off now with kind of your thoughts on at least the premise and the chemistry or lack thereof of these two Chuckles.
Okay, so initially when they're talking about the main, because Normata is built as like the main villain who kind of like kicked off this thing. Yeah. Earlier on when I'm watching it, I'm not gonna lie, I knew they were gonna do that stupid twist where you don't really get, spoiler for anybody, you don't actually ever see him. That's supposed to be the main villain that the premise kicks off with, but you never see it. You never see him. So we don't even know why he did what he did, his intentions or anything, because he's right. Early on, they label it as just an AI creation that did everything. No, it was an actual person that did it. Later on, they like kind of changed, like, it was an actual person that did it, but you never see that actual person.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah, spoiler alert, it turns out that it was her the entire time. Or her father was the original one, but then once he died, she took the mantle. So it's like one of those, it's a mantle type things. Like, get out of here. Just shut up.
She ends up basically, like, after her father died, they took her in. So he passed away when she was very young, so they took her in, and then she ended up becoming the female Normata, but we never even got a chance to see what her dad was like. It would be that's a nice. It's one of those movies where it did the Top Gun Maverick approach with a villain that was just kind of worse. You know, Top Gun Maverick has a villain but not a villain kind of thing. This one just did it. I think the idea of the villain itself, not the movie itself, the villain was just so executed so poorly. Actually, it's convoluted for no reason when they could have had a super simple thing going and it would have worked out way better.
Because you know what they did? It was the whole thing of, well, this villain was supposed to be this AI god that threatens humanity. And then it turns out, nope, it's the industrial military complex who's the real enemy. And it's like, here we go, back to square one again. But go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I thought the opening where in a matter of like literally 5 minutes, you're introduced John David Washington and his wife. They're expecting a baby. They're in love. And he's lying to her. She finds out she finds out he's lying to her, and then they're getting bombed. And it's like, and you're supposed to feel all of this loss and all of this great emotion over him losing his loved one and whatever. And it's done so poorly and such in this melodramatic manner. And it's like, how are we supposed to care? Like, and then they play Claire de Lune. Debussy's Claire de Lune to sort of evokes the heartstrings, like, oh, he's lost his family. It's like, we don't give a shit. You haven't built up the character to the point where we care about him at all. And so like that whole opening was just a complete flat like execution of trying to introduce this world and we got to jump forward 5 years. Allison Janney, by the way, who's the person who comes and gives him the job to find the child, is one of the few things I enjoyed about this movie. Because she just doesn't give a fuck. Yeah. She doesn't care. She's just like, look, we got a mission to accomplish. Are you on board or not? And I don't know. His whole like, oh, I'm supposed to kill a child over 2 hours is just like, okay, we're just gonna keep finding reasons not to, right? So yeah, I thought it was a pretty clumsy start, but I did like the little intro video for like, you know, that nostalgic like TV video or whatever of the robots being integrated into society, and then it just like, you know, shit hitting the fan.
Oh yes. Just quick. One thing that bothered me about that little intro, and it was well filmed. I think I noted that it was well filmed. When they have to say that the simulants were more human than human.
Yep. That term, more human than human. That was creepy.
I hated that. I hated that. I hated that.
That was the theme that they were trying to shove in your head with this propaganda piece.
Yeah,
but
right.
yeah.
But well, my initial thoughts of I'm assuming it was about the opening. Sorry, I was talking to my cousin. What I got was a lot of Blade Runner, and even when now we saw this little image here, I'm thinking Akira, because if any of you saw Akira, who's like the mastermind in that whole thing, it's like a little kid. So I'm thinking this is just coming more of a pastiche of previous films that I've seen before. Nothing original. Nothing.
Did you see Spielberg's AI?
No, I never did.
Okay, because this is much.
Yeah, I was getting in the imagery. I was getting the same feel. I mean, I know enough about it.
Yeah,
and also just kind of contributing here in the opening when they're supposed to be very much in love and all together. I'm going, why are you so blank? I mean, I'm someone who's not been like a John David Washington hater. I think he was fine in Tenet, but here it's like this is so blank, and it did not get any better throughout the whole film. This is just such a weak performance. This is not even a real performance. It's like almost I don't want to say he didn't want to be there, but it's like you're not communicating anything here. I don't see this great romance. I don't even know who this person is.
Let me ask you this, because this is like the third straight movie now where they've at least tried to make some kind of like romantic connection with him and his lead. Because it was this movie last year was Amsterdam with him and Margot Robbie, and I didn't buy that one at all. And then there was also that weird one in Tenet with like him and what's her name, Elizabeth,
white lady that he was after.
Debicki, yeah. And like I said, I didn't buy any of those relationships like whatsoever. It's just like they just don't have like any realistic chemistry with one another. And then the thing is, like, the plot really doesn't, I guess, require them. I mean, it requires them to have it, but it doesn't put them in a position where you actually like show it. So it's like they just put two people together and expect to be like, oh yeah, they're so in love and he can't live without her. But it's like, but you haven't shown that like at any point.
That was my problem with the movie. Was I didn't like I said before. I think the visuals look good. I think the tone was really. I think the pacing and the tone were fun. Since obviously the second act, but I think the tone of the movie, they got a pretty good tone out of it. Like the movie itself is not saying these stupid jokes, you know. There's like one joke when they're telling the Asian like you can beat off your mom or some shit. That's like the only joke in the movie. But other than that, the tone is really well put out throughout the movie, and I felt like the relationship was what really was throwing the movie off. This kind of movie doesn't really need a romance kind of in it. They're always in a dire situation. They always have to be on their toes. I just kind of felt like the whole relationship angle is so not needed, and I think at the end of the movie just gets him killed for no reason. Honestly.
And the issue with the romance is that you throw it in at the very beginning, but there's no reason for us to be invested in this great romance. Right. This was the same problem that was in 65 when we saw that one. And they introduced this great, what's supposed to be this great romance, and he's in love with his wife and his daughter. He cares about them. Yeah. We don't care because we don't know who these people are. Same here. You have to weave the romance in. You just can't.
They try to do it through flashbacks. Remember?
Yeah.
They try to do the flashbacks where she put on his arm, but it wasn't enough though. It's like
we're not invested. We don't care. I don't even know her. I didn't even remember her name for the longest time.
I did. I know her face anywhere. I know.
But you could have done this so much better through flashback, through little hints, little emotive hints of his own memory. You know what I mean? And even with that, but whatever. That's with somebody with intelligence writing a script.
Not a replicant.
So, the other thing that I think I won't say hinders the film is they set you up with one premise and then give you a twist. But the twist can only pay off if you haven't seen this before. And some people have been saying this is like one of the best movies of the year. I mean, sure, give or take how many bad movies come out a year. Fuck it, I guess, right? This is a low bar for people, I guess. But the twist itself and the premise, I think themselves aren't the issue. It's just the way it's executed. I think that's all it is, right? there's no reason for her to be the main villain, but then the plot's saying she is, but then flip by the middle of the second act toward the beginning of the third act, they're actually not the villains, the humans are, and now I'm supposed to root against the humans. That's where the disconnect comes from.
Now, is it my imagination when they go into New Asia, and they're going to go and find the lair? Did anyone get a sense that this was almost like Vietnam?
Yes, and Apocalypse Now was a major influence on this movie, and I'm like, I'm sorry, what?
Exactly.
This incredibly simplistic sort of allegorical story you're comparing to to Apocalypse Now. What is wrong with you? Like, it just makes no sense.
It's basically just taking bits and pieces from all of these other movies, and that's all you see. That's all I saw. Oh, look, it's Blade Runner. Oh, look, it's Akira. Oh, look, I was thinking Platoon, not Apocalypse
Terminator.
Now. Yes,
listen,
Terminator.
It's the inverse of Terminator, where the machines are the good guys, and we're the evil humans that need to be wiped off the face of the earth so that collectivist utopia can be ushered in.
At the end, I was thinking that the last Star Wars movie where the Empire finally falls and everyone's celebrating. I mean, that's all I kept seeing through it. It's not to say that I thought this was terrible, because kind of jump real quick, the visuals were pretty well done and they weren't over the top. But there is just like I kept seeing too many other movies here to really care about whatever story they were trying to present.
Yeah, the thing I've seen people praise is the outside stuff, like the visuals, the tone, and all the score and all that stuff. Like, if all that stuff I think is perfectly fine. What really screws it over is, like I said, the story, execution, and I think the characters too. Also, the lack of supporting cast in this movie. They try to just get you on the kid and him and Jim and Chan's character and that one lady who played mom in that sitcom, the main
Allison
lady.
Janney.
Allison
Yeah.
Janney?
Yeah.
I thought she was
Academy
amazing.
winner.
Yeah,
She was
great.
good.
Outside of them, there's not really any other characters. I'm supposed to care for the guys like Godzilla. I'm supposed to care for that. Come on, I'm supposed to care about that guy.
Ken
Yeah,
Let
he
them
was-
fight.
Right, let them fight.
I don't. He kept calling him brother, but like, why?
He tried to
Why?
murder in like less than 2 minutes.
They were in like one scene together, like an hour and like 30 minutes into the movie. They're back together. There's supposed to be like some kind of emotional connection. Like they were in like one scene together. And like, and then even when they like reunite those two, it's like there's no like, like, hey, it's been a while or anything like that. Like nothing. It's like they remove all the emotion out of this film, and it was ironic because it's a film about a bunch of robots, but it's like still you have to have something here to grab onto.
Am I okay? Oh, go ahead.
Sorry,
go ahead.
Oh no, I'll say I think the only credit I give the second act, even though I thought it drags a little too long, they did keep her killed. Most movies would have kept her alive. Most movies would have kept. I will respect. He did keep her dead. That bitch got bombed. That bitch is dead. But but it's only that's kind of weird plot hole too, is because she got bombed, but she was able to make a manufactured kit. Did she kill her unborn child to make that?
No, I mean she got bombed, and then I think she was already working on like a replicant of like the child, like while she was pregnant or some stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh, thank God! I'm about to say that bitch is crazy.
So, like, keep in mind, this film, like I said, there's a lot of, like, inverses and perversions of the Bible in here. So, because this is told from the perspective of the AI, it's like the humans, like, we have our own trinity of, like, a trinity of, like, God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. But in this version, it's the creator, the quote-unquote the creator. Then there's the kid, the child, as they call it. Then it's the mother, right? So, that's kind of like the trinity of, like, the AI side of things. And, like I said, there's a lot of things, like, we talked a lot about, the whole transhumanism thing where they're trying to promote this idea of humans and robots being together, and one day like the robots are going to look just like the humans and you're not going to be able to tell them apart, and we're all going to live in perfect harmony. Spoiler alert, none of that's actually going to happen. I'm just throwing that out there. And then like this movie leaves a lot to be desired just as like a simple sci-fi movie, because like I said, you go on and it's kind of like a very like slow start to like the film, but you kind of think that it's going somewhere, and then when it becomes like a buddy situation between like John and this child, it's like you're kind of waiting for like something more exciting to happen, and it doesn't really happen. And they go to like different locations. They're at like a little base. They're like the New Asian city where like they're all under the guise of like the military who's looking for them. But it's like they have all these like little pretty visuals visuals and like these settings look interesting enough, but after a while you just realize nothing really exciting is happening like in this movie. Like it's really just going through the motions, like straight through from start to finish, unfortunately.
Yeah,
the film wants us
the
to.
substance is not there. There's like literally no storytelling or character substance that stands out other than the movies that they're copying from. You know what I mean? John
Yeah.
David Washington is basically a cipher. You know, he's just constantly reacting to what's happening around him. And you know, look, maybe that's not his fault if the script sucks or it doesn't give him much to do, but he just doesn't inspire anything you know, in an audience to care about him and what he's going through. So I mean, I just think that really gets in the way with you connecting. I mean, the visuals are nice. They only did this for $80 million. Hey, good job. Marvel should really take some notes.
Yes.
But and I will say that it moves along at a good pace. But the bones of the movie are the weak spot, and that's what makes a sort of lasting you know, experience at the movies. That's, you know, to sort of remember characters and remember why you cared so much over that 2-hour runtime. And this movie just completely lacks those components.
Well, there's that scene when they're in whatever city they're, you know, looking, and they're going to hide out, and that woman is going to, you know, offering him ice cream and or the child ice cream and all that good stuff. I'm like, why? I mean, I'm sad that you got killed, but why should I be that invested to like, oh, this is a terrible tragedy. I don't know who you are. I might have nodded off a little bit when they were, you know, going there, and I hadn't really given much thought to the biblical overlays. But what Alfie, its actual name is Alpha O. What did that mean? Alpha Omega. And what does Christ say? I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end.
Yep.
So it's like, you know, you're going a little overboard here.
And then not only that, but like I said, this whole idea of the child is that she's the savior of the AI. So they basically made her like an AI version of Jesus. It's like this, she was born from the creator, quote unquote, you know, the whole AI God. And now she's the child of that God. And she's supposed to be the one that can save the AI race against, you know, the evil military complex, US government people and stuff like that. Because her whole thing is, like I said, she can control like any technology, like for her mind. So it's like, if we get her up there in this giant ship, she can bring the ship down, and then the military can stop bombing us out of the sky and nonsense like that.
For my sense, I think you're giving this film too much credit on that, because
I'm hitting it right on the nose.
You could be. You could be. I'm not saying that you're not, but for me, it was just dragging. Rob said that it was paced well. I thought, like, this is just kind of going on. Just get on with whatever you're trying to tell. The third part, because it was divided into 3 parts: Nimrata, the creator, the child, and the mother. The mother was the third act. It's like, okay, you've destroyed this lair, this beautiful community where the replicants and the humans and the robots all live in, you know, perfect harmony out in the fields of Vietnam or Malaysia or wherever it was. Now you have to drag me to California again, and I have to see all this. It's like, is this thing going to end? Seriously? When am I going to get to the end? Because
the conversation that John David Washington has with the kid about, like, he goes, "I'm not a good person," and you know, I think they say, "Well, neither am I," or something along those lines. But it's just like, you know, you get the heavy-handed impression that he's going to have to pay for his sins somehow, as if, you know, he's guilty for having been working for the Americans and you know what, killing people, all this and not even people, but robots, you know. And like, the movie didn't convince, like, it has all these like tear-jerking moments leading up to like him being separated from this child. And it's like, and it's like, I'm sorry, I don't buy it. Like, it's this sentimental, like, tacky sort of like Hollywood bullshit. It's just like, you haven't done the hard work, the heavy lifting for me to give a shit about the story you're selling.
Okay.
And by the way, the irony was not lost on me too. Like I said, maybe you can argue I'm looking thinking too deeply into this, or maybe not, but the irony was not lost on me that the whole concept of this movie is that, you know, this AI figure that was born out of an underground lab, I think was where they found it from in the first place. This figure born from an underground lab has to literally go to war against this all-seeing machine in the sky, and they have to go up to this thing to destroy this giant Death Star machine thing from the sky. It's like, oh yeah, the things from below destroy the things from above. Like, that's totally how this thing plays out in fantasy land, right?
It's very satanic.
Mm-hmm.
Get from the lower depths to reach up to the heavens when Satan was cast out from heaven.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that
the whole idea of transhumanism is pretty demonic once you're trying to figure out what they're trying to do. So
yeah, I didn't even give it that much credit. I will say that whenever they were able to revive the dead people, it was like, oh, you know, they can only talk for a couple of minutes or 30 seconds, 90, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but what I was thinking is American Werewolf in London, where when the corpse pops up, it starts talking. And same with the Mummy, which I think they stole that from. I wasn't taking that seriously. It's like, oh, this is terrible. This person is, he's dead. We should bring him back. I was like, I don't know who this person is. That's
Right.
one major issue. You want us, and Rob hits on it well. You want us to have this deep connection to these characters when we don't know who these people are. I don't even know their names. It's like,
I guess that was supposed to be the idea of it. It's supposed to be in a dire situation where I guess the odds are supposed to be against them, where you're supposed to care based off the circumstance around you. But to even for that to work as a concept, you have to set that up in a long form flashback. Remember, we only got like a few flashbacks, and they were only really about subtle things. They never really went far with them. That's why I think that's the big problem with the movie. Good ideas, except poorly executed ideas, and not longer thought out. Maybe there's a director's cut that shows all this shit potentially longer form, but I really doubt it, honestly.
No, I don't think we need that at this point. That's one thing we can do without.
We need the creator cut.
I was a little puzzled. Maybe I in my semi-conscious state didn't quite get this part when one of the robots that look like those the robots from the black hole runs out to blow up the bridge or blow up the other area. I thought the first one said, "It's been a pleasure and an honor to serve with you." And was there trying to connect some sort of connection between the Allison Janney character and this machine? I was confused by that. I don't know if I misheard what was on the scene or what have you, but I was perplexed. Like, why are we trying to relate to these robots? I didn't understand that.
Trying to get you relate to terrorists.
Yeah. But like I said, it's the whole thing that kind of like trick you into rooting against kind of like the humanity. It's like I said, the whole concept of this is that it's robots versus humanity, and they've set it up to where humanity is the bad guy. So they try to use the child to emotionally manipulate you into rooting for the robotic side. And even then, it's like their whole thing. It's like we find out later on that the whole bomb in L.A. I was like, oh no, that was an error by the humans. They did that, and then they blamed us for it and stuff. It's like,
I didn't believe that.
That's such a forced BS like line just to kind of justify it. It's like, no, we just want peace because we're just robots.
Was the problem with the second act for me was that the ideas that they set you up on in the second act, they try to undo it all. That's why you can tell they had a shifting idea in the premise of what they really wanted to fulfill. Because in the second act, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just too good looking, maybe my brain is too big, and maybe I think that's too much. Where in the second act, they literally try to undo every single premise they already set you up with. And the only way that can work is if, obviously, you have good characters to balance that out, flashbacks to balance out these characters. But they don't. And the tone is so set on these robots being the bad guy, you're like, okay, just fully go through with this and humans win. But when you have a second act that is trying to undo all that, then it's hard to believe whatever concept you're trying to get me on in the third act, because of the third act, I'm like, they're trying to beat the humans now. But weren't we the good guys trying to get Normata back? What?
You see, that is an issue, because when he says that, when Ken Watanabe says, it was basically your fault. It was just an error in humans. And you know what would have happened? Nothing. We wouldn't have fought you. You know what my thinking was? You're lying, trying to manipulate this guy into basically betraying the American side. and you're just feeding him false information. I didn't believe it. I just never believed it. That's why I never
So
accepted the premise that they were
I
trying
was
to say.
talking to a Christian Toto today about how this movie, and he brought this up, and I realized how right he is. This is the Avatarization of this fucking movie, where you take the robots as these noble, peaceful, freedom fighting warriors that are they've been put in a bad position, and they just want to be free. When that little kid said, "For all robots to be free," I wanted to throw something at the fucking screen. It like the inserted sort of like dialogue. It's so unbelievably infuriating because it's so badly done. It's so badly written. And just one more point: John David Washington is the main character. He's the protagonist, supposedly. What does he believe in? He literally is he's a simp who gets fucking convinced to betray his own people, his own race of people, because the world's better off if I pay for my sins and humanity gets wiped off the face of the earth, basically.
So his entire motivation throughout the entire film is, oh, my wife died when she got nuked a few years ago, and I need to do anything I possibly can to find her again if she's still out there. That's his whole motivation. He's not even doing like this whole mission. He's not even doing it because he wants either side to win a war. He just wants to see if his wife from 5 years ago is still alive. That's the only reason that he's doing anything.
It's maybe like, why do we give a shit about him? Why do we care about his character? He doesn't believe in anything. He's a fucking, he's literally he's a facade. He just does, he's being used and he allows himself to be used. That's all he is.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't thought of that.
He's a useful idiot.
I think it's also on the direction is they only allow him to just go after basically a dead girl. That's it. And the only credit I give to that is they kept her dead. I'll be honest here, a lot of movies would have had that bitch alive. She'd be like, well, I left you because you were a misogynist and all that bullshit women be speaking about, But they had her dead. But the thing here, to get us to really buy into that scene where he's crying with his kid, technically, and he's next to a dead body, is I would have to care about this guy. Throughout the movie, I was like, this guy is just super one note, and he's just only going after his wife. Is there anything else? He had a best friend who just died right in front of him. He was like, all right, cool. Shed maybe 2 tears and just left. I was like, fuck. What are we doing here?
Yeah, and I couldn't get emotionally involved in that guy or the woman with the ice cream. I don't even know what her name is.
She was Asian. You can't get really involved in this.
That was a joke where they threw in the bomb that blew her up out of the apartment. You see the window blowout. That was a joke. It was a funny moment.
It's interesting that you brought up this whole thing about how the replicants and the actual robots, not even the replicants, but the actual robots were very mystical and spiritual. Because when they go to that hidden valley area, I thought, why are the robots wearing Tibetan monk outfits? I was like, what are they saying? And then if you remember when they go into the temple to meet Nimrata, it has the figures, kind of Hindu-like figures of robots. So I'm like, what is this? This is bizarre. Why are the robots wearing the robes? And look, and remember, I don't want to say I liked it, but that scene real quick when they have all of the robots in monks' outfits lined up and they're going to just shoot them all. I'm going, this is really strange. I don't understand what you're trying to say, that the robot monks, you can't kill robot monks. They're not even monks. I don't understand.
I was trying to understand throughout the movie, how can, and this is every robot property ever, how can a robot feel emotions? I never can understand that. How can a robot feel emotions? Like, how can these guys feel pain? Even the human.
They never made the argument like Blade Runner did, that whole like, well, they said it a few times of like, well, these things aren't real. But they basically tried to make the case that these are sentient beings and that they're just as real as human beings are, which, again, I feel like the movie didn't do enough to sort of sell that as a more central idea, because it's like, yeah, to these things, they are being, killed off. And I don't know. It's very obvious how much the movie tries to tie it to like genocide, or like these are migrant people, or these are people that have been, because of their who they are, they've been targeted. So the movie is just, I think, ultimately badly made.
Yeah.
But it still entertained me relatively for its 2-hour runtime.
The one thing that, I mean, as I was finishing it, and I was thinking pretty well of it, despite some of its, despite of its flaws, when the humans lose the war and all the robots and sentients or replicants are celebrating, that just did not sit well with me, because I'm thinking you're basically the enemy here. Because again, I never bought the idea of what Ken Watanabe told John David Washington, that you humans were the ones that caused the explosion, not us, and we would have not gone to war with you. I thought there's something strange. It doesn't sit well with me. I can't be celebrating seeing the enemy win. And again, that just
this is a similar problem that I had with the Planet of the Apes franchise. The Planet of the Apes essentially did the same thing, where it's like they were trying to make you side against humans by siding with, like, the monkeys and stuff like that. But it's like, I'm not gonna root for the monkeys and root for our own destruction, like in a movie. It's like, and this is how I felt like 8 years ago, when I knew absolutely nothing about like the Bible, like whatsoever. Like even then I was like, no, I'm not falling for this like whole spiel like whatsoever. But they keep finding ways to do this, and they keep doing it like over and over again. And like I said, if you were watching the Barroom earlier this week, we made some revelations about Hollywood and the way that they take orders from, let's just say, sinister beings. I think that's probably a safe way to say that, Rob. I mean, not Rob, Rick, because you were actually on the show. But yeah, I mean, yeah, this is the type of stuff that they're pushing here, and not only is the messaging just really, really bad in that movie from that aspect, just as a film, especially a sci-fi film, there's nothing here to like really grasp onto this movie. Like the more I think about this movie, the more I actually dislike it. I wasn't gonna consider putting this in my top 10 worst, but I feel like I'm going to now, because like I said, as a romance, there's nothing here, and the romance is supposed to bond the entire film. As a sci-fi, I mean, it looks great for its budget, but it's not anything that we haven't already seen before. Like you're not going to see anything visually like impressive here that they haven't seen in like hundreds of movies like before this. And then, like I said, the relationships here don't work. Trying to invert the whole humanity and robot angle to like the robots being the good guys just doesn't work. It's like this whole thing just feels like a complete waste of time. And I was going to make this point too. Looking at the script and everything you guys, all three of you guys have mentioned about why the script doesn't work, it makes me wonder, did AI write this like plot? Like, is this an AI script? Because like I said, it's literally like someone trying to make a movie without no emotion whatsoever, because they don't understand the concept of human emotion. That's what this film feels like. So I wouldn't be surprised if they announce like in the next few months, like, oh yeah, we had AI help us write the script. Like, yeah, it feels like it.
I wouldn't be surprised if they announced that the writers had conflicting ideas, because that's what it feels like. Because there's no way you heavy draw out this concept of what's going on only to kind of back out of it. Mm-hmm. Literally, at the end of the second act, going to the final act of the movie, there's no way. So unless you have two guys who are like, this, as the old saying goes, it's easier to start something than harder to end it, or some shit like that, right? So that's kind of where I think the movie just has a huge identity crisis. Because like you guys said the same thing. The positives, there's some positives there. I was entertained. I didn't hate this when I watched it, but it's just when you got nothing out of the characters and the plot and the writing are so jumbled, you're like, what? Now imagine if this had good characters and a good well-written plot. You're like, okay, this is not the worst thing ever, probably, but that's where it goes. And I also, having really bad characters can screw up your movies. Because like when I was looking back in the movies, I was thinking about it while I was walking home, I was like, the supporting cast is so bad. There's no supporting cast here. And it's just John David Washington and just an Asian kid.
Yep, that's pretty much it.
And then the greatest actress on this planet, Gemma Chan, obviously, right? Because reasons.
I think Allison Janney was good here. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to throw everyone under the bus. But for me, this movie, the more we talk about it, like Jacob, the less I like it. I'm still going to give it maybe a mildly positive, but there wasn't really much there. John David Washington, this is just a terrible performance. It was just so weak. and blank.
Let me ask you this: has there been any movie that he's impressed you on, like, at all? Because I think like his big claim to fame was what, the Black Klansman movie with Spike Lee. That's what really like jumped off his acting career. But everything I've seen him in like the last 5 years is like he's not that good. It feels like if he wasn't Denzel's son, he wouldn't be getting any of these opportunities right now.
Well, I will say I thought he was fine in Tenet. Tenet, I don't think it was horrendous, but he was fine. Black Klansman, I thought he was pretty good in that. But Amsterdam, but again, I can't blame all that on his performance. I mean, there was nothing there. I don't think anyone could have really saved that. But this was, I'll say this much: this was the worst that I've seen him in. Because there was nothing. There was no sense of emotion. There was nothing there that was trying to tie any sense of, this is my child or my metaphorical child.
Did you like his blonde afro?
Yeah, you remember the blonde afro that looked absolutely ridiculous from start to finish?
I was puzzled by it. I was like, that's an interesting choice there.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's nothing there for him. Yeah, I really can't think of anything that this was great. And again, this is so derivative, especially of Blade Runner, and it's in the shadow of Blade Runner. I mentioned this to Rob that while I didn't hate it, it just reminded me of a particular film. Of course, Blade Runner had better qualities, better acting, better story, and Vangelis' score to go along with it.
Yes, it's a masterpiece. Yes, we know.
Yes.
Yeah.
But this I couldn't really care because we were introduced. I kept thinking this is like this could have been a good maybe start out as a television series that kind of got jumbled into a film. But I was not overwhelmed with it, and I was thinking, are you going to end? As I'm kind of like drifting in and out of consciousness sometimes.
There's a 2 hour and 15-minute movie, and you definitely filled the runtime about halfway in. So.
There was no reason for this movie to be that long.
It's
like there's another hour,
30-minute kind of movie. Yeah, I was surprised it was 2 hours. I was like, you can just wrap this up in an hour, 30 minutes, call it a day, and I can go home and start beating off because reasons.
Yeah, look, I will say this: I think that this movie, somehow sidesteps its own nihilism, because the ending is basically like humanity has no future. We need to wipe the earth of our destructive negative influences so we can all hold hands in harmony. And it's just like it. Listen, the thing I love about science fiction, hard science fiction, is that it challenges our notions of what we think we know. Okay, and not getting too comfortable with AI and not getting too comfortable with things that are not natural, and horror movies deal with this. The Universal horror movies, Dracula, Frankenstein, The Wolfman, all deal with the same thing. And it's like this movie is selling you in the idea that's saying, no, we need to embrace AI. AI is the way forward, and it's this creepy technocratic sort of like anti-human message that just is so creepy if you really examine it. If you take a step back and examine what it's saying, and it's like, John David Washington has to sacrifice himself for the betterment of the world that's coming to be. It's like it's and again, I'm not a religious person. It's like the inverse of the Christian story. You know what I mean? And so I just
I was gonna bring that up too. Like I said, someone who knows a lot more about the biblical themes like of this film. If you do read the Bible, there's only one figure in the entire Bible that has very strong anti-humanity views, and I think you can pretty much figure out exactly who that is. So final thoughts on this one. Like I said, I was initially going to give it something like a 1.5 out of 5 because I just really didn't feel much for this. But the more I think about it, like I said, biblical themes aside, this is just a bad movie. Like it really is. Like I can't even give it like a benefit of the doubt in certain aspects because it just kind of fails on like every single metric. The only thing that this film has going for it is the visual effects. Like I said, they do very good visual effects for like maybe like 40% of the cost that like a Disney MCU movie would have, and it looks pretty good. So I'll give it credit as far as that goes. Outside of that, there's nothing else going for this as a movie. The acting is bad. There's no chemistry. The writing is poor. The whole messaging behind it, there's nothing positive I can say about this. I'm just gonna give it like a 1 out of 5, and I don't know. This is probably gonna be somewhere in the low end of my top 10 worst of the year. I'm not sure if it'll still be there by the time we get to the end of the year, but it's probably somewhere like 8 or 9 right now. So that's my thought. Rick, I guess we can go. Let's start with MSK. What do you think here?
Oh, so like I started the show off, I think this is going to be good for people that aren't really into this genre. I think this has a kind of a normie centric sci-fi feel to it, where if you don't really know what sci-fi is or like it, this might be one of your best movies of the year. But if you're someone that kind of, outside of just taking your daughter to the movie theater because you're a dad, you want to keep your kids happy, outside of that feeling, outside of just a completely normie casual fan feeling, it's a movie. I'll say that. I mean, I don't give ratings anymore. I don't care to do that anymore. But I will say this: it's a movie that if the writing and the characters were stronger, you could make the argument this is a decent movie. But they're not, and that's the problem with it. The writing is terrible, and I hate movies that get you on a concept in the first act, half of the second act, and then pivot out of it because they don't know how to end it or fully execute on their act. And I also don't like when you have to sit here and watch Gemma Chan for the 7th time attempt to actually act. It's disgusting. And Johnny Washington, yeah, I liked him in Tenet. Like, it was fine there. But him as an actor, it's just, I hate it how you have your main lead. Yeah, because the main lead can only just love one woman. Now, it's fine just loving a woman and feeling like you messed up and you want to do things better. But I think given how the movie sets him up, if you want to have him do better, then he should have been a character that's trying to say the AI from the beginning of the movie, not trying to get him to basically wipe it out in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's how I ended off. If you're a normie, this will probably be one of your top 10 movies of the year. If you're a normie to just sci-fi in general. But if you're a person that just watches movies consistently, you're just going to be like, what the fuck did I got? You could sit there and watch X videos for the next 2 hours and that'd be more pleasurable than probably watching this, but...
And less subversive.
Right? And more explosions out of other places.
I mean, this movie got a lot of explosions in it too, so I guess we can give that slight credit here. But Rick, what's your rating here?
Well, I think I'm going to be slightly generous because the good visuals do go a long way with me. So I would probably give it like a 2.5 out of 5. Yeah, the visuals I guess were good, and Allison Janney was good in this, but this is the worst John David Washington performance that I've seen, and I'm not going to go to bat for him and say, oh, he was a great actor in all these other films. He wasn't, but this is a bad performance. The story just seemed to go on and on and on and on and on. Like, just wrap it up. After a while, I'm kind of like fading in and out and wondering, okay, so the woman Nimrata, Gemma Chan, is she like human or a replicant or like something, or I'm not sure what this is.
Yes.
There's there's no real sense of investment in all this, and again, I'm really bothered by the idea that I'm supposed to cheer on the fact that humanity lost. There's just something creepy because it is a sense of betrayal. I mean, he is. This is the same problem I had. I think not so much problem with Avatar or Dances with Wolves, but like I can't cheer on people that
it starts getting uncomfortable when you can name like multiple movies in the last few years that have the same type of premise where you're rooting against humanity, against like the new created thing, right?
Against what's supposed to be your side. But that's one big problem. This seemed to be a patchwork of other films that have come before. And I can't go into a movie and say, oh, well, this is that. They're taking it from this movie. They're taking it from that movie. I'm seeing Platoon. I'm seeing Akira. I'm seeing a lot of Blade Runner. It's like, why don't I just watch those movies instead? I think they're all better than this. But yeah, the visuals are very good. I didn't hate the score, So I would give it like a 2.5 out of 5. Yeah, my opinion has actually gone down the more and more I think about it, which is why I don't really want to react instantly. Because I would have been maybe like a 3 or even 3.5 when I left the theater, but now as I think about it more and hear more, I'm like, so but the visuals were good. The visuals were good. I was impressed. So yeah, 2.5. That's my view.
Rob, final word with you.
Yeah, so I'm somebody that I like movies, especially like from the 70s that dealt with nihilistic themes, dealt with losing, dealt with the sort of tragic ending. But the way that that's framed in those movies is a powerfully felt, haunting, like negative. It's and the way that this is presented about humanity losing is almost celebratory. um it's I don't know, it's almost like it's leaning in, if not overwhelmingly celebrating its nihilism. So that's very different than like the hero who tried and still came away loser or whatever. Which I think we can all relate to. Like we've all put a lot of ourselves into relationships or endeavors and not come up winning at the end. So that's very different than sort of saying we don't deserve to live.
Yeah,
And
right.
that's what this seems like this movie is celebrating and promoting, under the guise of I don't know, progressive ideals or something. I think this is a really bad movie. I think that not only does it not have a lot of storytelling substance, it lacks good characters, it lacks a coherent plot for part of its runtime. I do think the production design is good. I think they did a good job with the budget on the visuals. So that's there, but this is a 1.5 out of 5 for me. I was gonna go 2, but just kind of thinking about what it's communicating, its ideas, in its, if you can call it a coherent script or whatever. But it's just like this is a bad movie on many different levels. So I think that uh gentleman to my right, I don't know his name, C9. I think he's right. A lot of like regular normie audience members will go to see this. Without thinking about it too much, take their kids, whatever. But yeah, this has a lot of issues. Some of them have to be read into. Some of them are just there on the surface. But we'll see how it does at the box office.
Yeah. The more I'm thinking about this movie as you guys are talking, it's like maybe this one deserves to be higher on my list on the worst movies of the year. I'll figure that out after the show. I still got a few months to put that together.
It's not about bait
it's
and
not-
switch.
Huh?
No, it's not about the bait and switch thing. It's more like you never see the original villain.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't even know if that guy's a good or bad guy. Like, how can I get behind the villain or think he's bad or good or his ideals?
Well, the villain,
never see him.
The initial villain dies off screen. Then you're told 2 hours into the movie that the person we've been looking for this whole time was actually the woman. Exactly.
Oh, no. The woman was the bad guy. I love it.
Well, I guess that's supposed to be.
And then what does that say about Washington's character, that he's been sleeping with the bad guy the whole time, had no idea she was actually bad, and he's the one supposed to be undercover? It's like, how dumb are you?
Yeah, but I guess that's supposed to be
Hmm.
the shocking twist. I guess that's the shocking twist. But it wasn't that much of a shock because it didn't even seem to register.
No, it sucked ass. The movie sucked a 2-pack of ass, as Joe Budden would like to say. But
I'm positive. I'm positive.
Not a 2-pack.
Joyride is still going to be down. Is it still, you're still going to prefer watching this over Joyride?
But they seeing some of the Twitter responses to this movie, that it's like that people have said it's gonna be remembered for years as a great science fiction movie, and I'm like, you people are fucking up your own asses. Anything that's moderately okay, you're like, it's the best ever. Okay,
watch them not even go see it. These people always are like, go support these kind of movies so they make more than superhero movies, but they never watch them because they're just full of shit.
I have heard that. I have heard that on Twitter. But again, remember, Rob, we are dealing with the same people who genuinely think that Barbie is going to be like one of the great films of our time. So
Morbius was one of the best movies ever made. Come on, what are we doing here?
It bombed twice.
It's a morbid bomb.
Morbid
When I
time.
watched Morbius, girls' phone numbers appeared in my phone.
Mhm.
Porn stars appeared right next to me, waiting to give me Gok Gok 3000.
I think they were trying to find something more entertaining for you to watch in that movie.
My brain subconsciously told me I needed to do that too.
Well, I wish people didn't have to sit next to me in a nearly empty theater. That's my
Yeah, I would have gotten
that's happened to me once. And look, I like to sit in the front, and I sit in the front with the furthest, the closest seat to like the actual exit, so I just get on out of there. And there was this older lady and like this 7-year-old girl sat next to me. The entire row was empty, and I bought my seat before they did, so they knew I was there, and they still sat right next to me. I just wanted to look at them like, really.
Exactly.
Really?
The same thing happened to me. I bought my seat early in the week, and there was no one there, which is why I picked it. And they just still had to buy the 2 seats. I mean, it was a couple, so they had to sit next to me. And I'm thinking, why? There are so many other seats around you. Why?
Bunch of turd burglars.
This couple only got up because I was chewing. I was chewing loud. I was eating nacho cheese, chili cheese, fucking chips, and they just got up, and there was only 3 people in there. This couple, this other older white guy, and me. And this lady, she had red hair. Oh, you know, she was short, glasses, red hair. She clapped when the movie was over, and I was like, okay, I'm leaving. I'm just leaving. No more of this.
Well, next Friday night, I can tell you this much. We're going to be
watch
watching...
Saw?
No Saw. We're gonna be doing a movie night, and see how we usually do this is that we bring aboard our wheel, right? We have a wheel full of movies, and we get to decide at random which movie we're gonna watch. So here's the wheel. It's back. It may look a little bit different. Some movies have changed. Some movies are still there. Though we still have Trimmers on here. We still have Chasing Poppy, Savage Streets, Can't Hardly Wait, Bring It On, Menace to Society, Blazing Saddles, Coach, Car Wash, and Live from Baghdad. So this is the part of the show where we spin this wheel and we try to figure out what the hell we're going to be watching next week on the show. So you guys ready? With excitement?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you've been overruled. That's all I have to say there. So spin the wheel.
$1, $1.
Yes,
Savage
yes.
Streets it is.
Stop, mother.
I can hardly wait. So.
Can't Hardly Wait is our movie next week. We were so close to Savage Streets, son of a...
I have heard of this movie, but I really don't know anything. I don't know.
It was American Pie before American Pie. That's all.
Why can't we watch Tammy and the T-Rex instead?
No.
I thought, you see, this is how old I am. I thought you were going to say Tammy and the Bachelor with Debbie Reynolds.
Well, we're gonna see who we can bring onto the show for next Friday to watch that movie with us. But yes, it will be Can't Hardly Wait. So there you go, guys. We'll be doing the first 30 minutes of that show here on YouTube, and then we're gonna be jumping over to Rumble and Twitch for the film itself. So definitely join us back here if you guys actually want to catch the movie. Then catch us over on that side too. But I'm gonna give you guys a chance to promote anything that you got coming up. I guess we'll start off with our guest for tonight and give him just a little bit of a spotlight. Yeah, I mean, he's your first time here, right? Yeah, like you've been on the show before.
I thought I was white.
No.
So I'm not Michael Jackson.
The lights are off, so you're definitely not white.
They can't see my teeth either. So yeah, just follow me on XC9MSKA. That's pretty much it. I mean, we're on Rumble, same name, Master Swag King, and C9 Master Swag King on Twitch actually. And like I said before, if you go to the movie theaters, stop chewing loudly because it's annoying. And if you have a big head,
don't sit next to people when there's clearly space in the theater.
Yeah. Also, if you have a big head, sit in the back. That shit takes half the theater. I have to look over someone's big ass head. But yeah. Also, I think they should start. I probably should, instead of watching movies that society tells me, I should just watch X videos. Actually, might be more.
You're gonna do that anyway, so stop making it look like it's my fault.
I could have had a full packed room and Saw 10, and he made me watch this. Just saying,
breaking it out there. Our good buddy Rick, what do you got coming up? That's like I said, if you plan on running for office, you need to stop appearing on this show. I've told you this for like a month now.
Yeah, but who knows? Maybe I'll still keep thinking about it. Yeah. So basically, what I've got is what I always have: more haikus, because I know you love them, Jacob. I know that.
Yeah, I love them. I haven't read
you
a
love
single one, but I love them.
You love my haikus. And more reviews. I'm actually getting more into reviews now that the baseball season's over and I have more free time. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Just my reviews and my haikus, and yeah, that's it. I have a boring life.
Riveting. Not so boring life as Mr. Rob Motto here. What you got to tell the people?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to be on the next 5 to 6 shows because I got my schedule changed around a little bit. So I'll be on like the next 3 weeks of shows, alternating between the Barroom podcast and the movie night. So I will be here for the foreseeable future. That's good. That'll be consistent. And then, October's coming up, so I'm going to watch a bunch of Halloween movies. You can follow me on my Twitter just to see what I'm watching. I can't do all horror movies because I've got, new movies coming out like Killers of the Flower Moon, which I'm really looking forward to. But I'm going to definitely watch a lot of horror movies. So it's October, looking forward to it. Go Braves, the number 1 seed in the NL National League playoffs. So I'm looking forward to them doing well and not sucking. So go Braves.
Yeah, last year they got that seed, then they lost to the Phillies in 4. So hopefully they don't do that again this year.
Wait a minute. The year they came back to win the NL East, they were like down to the Mets 15. They were the number 1 seed last year.
Yeah, weren't they?
I don't know.
I believe. Remember, I think it was either them or the Dodgers, but I think they were at some point. But we'll figure it out after the show. It's not that important. So letting you guys know what we got coming up on the show here. So Monday night we're going to be doing part 2 of our Bible In series of Do Not Love the World. We're going to be tackling the issue of hatred and division, because I don't know if you noticed this, but there's a lot of hatred and division in the world when it comes to heterosexuality versus homosexuality, men versus women, black versus white, Democrat, Republican. I mean, we're just fighting each other over absolutely everything. We're going to talk about that tomorrow night. Our good buddies Johnny, Connor, and Sam will be back on the Monday night show. Tuesday night, episode 68 of the Barroom podcast. I want to say 68. We're not at 69 yet, so MSK, you're not allowed to show up until 69. And then and then next week, like I said, we're going to be doing the movie night of Can't Hardly Wait. We'll have some new guests coming on that show as well. We're going to be on Rumble and on Twitch, so make sure you guys are following us right now on our Rumble account. On the Twitch account is in the link below, so go out there, check that out as well, so you guys can actually follow along with us as we go live for next Friday show. And that's pretty much everything that we got going on right now. So thank you, my guests, for joining us here tonight. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Rob. Do you have a first name? I'm not calling you Top G or Iron Man. Is there any other name that we can call you here that's like simple?
So you don't want to call me by my names? Are you not affirming my delusion?
Yeah, that's what I just said.
My pronouns are fuck me.
Well, my pronouns are fuck you. How about that?
No, just call me MSK. Am I following Rick or Rob here? And I know we follow each other. Do I really want to follow Rob? He seems kind of mean.
Yeah, that's the point. That's why
Rob is
why I have a following.
Rob
I have a following because people like to see what I'm going to say next. That's kind of.
But hey, I gotta head out. Society, if you want to drop in the stream we're about to do right now, you can. But I gotta head out. Okay, guys.
Well, like I said, we're literally about to hit the outro here ourselves too. So, like I said, we will see you guys. If not Monday night, then Tuesday night. If not Tuesday night, then Friday night. So, till then, adios, goodbye. We're hitting the outro, and we'll see you guys later.
It's over. Go home.
Get the hell out! Get out! Get out! Get out!
Okay.
Get out! Get out! Get out!